Okay, shalom aleichem, everyone. We're back in the Talmud Bavli, Daf Lamed, Hey, Amud Aleph, and Masechet Sanhedrin, and we're picking up where we left off last time about the differences in court cases between capital punishment cases and cases of monetary issues. So the Mishnah did say that when it comes to a capital punishment case, you cannot execute the person that same day as the court case. The verdict for execution for kill him, you would have to take the night, right, sleep it over, and then the next day you can conclude and and then kill him and kill him the next day. So the question in the Gemara is, where do we know this from? What's the source that that you have to wait a night before you do the execution? So looking at 35A1 in the art scroll, Daf Lamed Hey Amud Aleph, about 10 lines from the top of the two dots. Menahani Mili, where is this ruling? Amar Rabbi Chanina, Amar Kra. He learns it from a pasuk. There's a pasuk in Yeshaya, right? Yeshayahu, Isaiah, and in there there's a pasuk that says as follows: Milati mishpat tzedek, full of judgment and righteousness. Yolin ba. Yolin means to sleep over. Yolin ba. And now you are murderers. So obviously the pasuk is very cryptic, and he's learning from this. So the way they explain it is as follows. The way the Yad Ramah and Rashi explain it is as follows. Reading the pasuk again. Milati mishpat. Jerusalem is full of mishpat, of judgments. Tzedek yalinba. When they were righteous, they would wait overnight. Yalinba, they would lodge, they would wait, they would sleep on it overnight. However, now when Jerusalem is being destroyed, one of the reasons is because now the judges of now they're considered killers because they do not wait overnight. So here is the pasuk that says that they used to have tzedek and they were yolin ba. That's the way he's understanding the pasuk. This pasuk. But Rava has a different way. Amar Racha, he says, I have a different pasuk. There is a pasuk also in Yeshaya earlier on that says Asheru Hamotz. So Asheru comes from the lashon of Ashrei, right? Praiseworthy. Here in the art school, they're translating it as encouraged, and they're saying the word Hamotz means oppressed. But then they're saying Asheru Dayan, praiseworthy is the Dayan, Shemehametz et Dino, who makes Chametz his din, right? What's Chametz? Chametz is when you let it ride, right? When you allow for time. So read it Asheru Hamotz as Asheru Dayan Shemehametz et Dino. The one who lets his judgment become Chametz, lets it rise and takes time, he delays it. That's the dayan to praise. So each one has their own pasuk where to learn that you would wait overnight before you execute someone who is guilty. So now the Gemara's question is, what does the other rabbi do with the other pasuk? If you're using one pasuk, what are you doing with the other pasuk? The other one learns it from the Idach and Rabbi Chanina, who learns it from Mishpat Tzedek Yolinba. What does he do with Asheru Hamotz? So he says, Asheru Hamotz velo Hometz. The pasuk is telling us? The pasuk is telling us that you should help out the victim and not the one who is oppressing him. In some governments, for example, today, a lot of the bail reforms and all these things, they kind of encourage criminals, right? So here it says as a pasuk, no, you shouldn't encourage criminals. Rather, you should encourage the victim. Asheru Hamotz, the one who's being oppressed, the lo Hometz, and not the thief. Rashi explains this with a case in Bava Kama. He says the case is in Bava Kama as follows. So I borrow 50,000 from Solomon. Okay, so Solomon, you give me 50,000, I borrow it from you, and you take a collateral from me to hold on to. So I give you my nice silver Kiddush cup, and I give it to you. Okay, now comes time for me to pay you back the 50,000, but you damaged my silver cup. I find out that you damaged it somehow, whatever happened to it. So now I refuse to pay you back your 50,000. Okay. So now I'm kind of like the robber. I'm the thief. I'm not paying you back. You damaged my cup. You damaged my cup, but I'm not paying you back. So Rashi says this is the case of Ashur Chamot V'lo Chometz, is when and this is all in note 10 in 35A2. This is now, so what needs to be done? So the Beit Din has to deal with the first case first. I'm not paying you back. I'm the thief. So they have to make sure I pay back, and then they'll deal with the case that you damaged my collateral that I gave you. So don't encourage me, who's not. I said I'm not going to pay you now, right? Because you damaged. They should not encourage me to do that. Rather, they should make me pay you back your money, and then to deal with the case of your damage of my collateral. That's with the pasuk according to the way Rashi is learning, Rabbi Chanina, Ashu Hamot v'lo Hometz, to pray to encourage the oppressed, the victim, and not the thief. Now, the idach, and now Rava who learned it from. Okay, question: whoever holds on the collateral, is he allowed to sell it? The whole question. Let's see here. Whoever holds on the collateral, is he allowed to sell it and then pay money to the other guy once the money returns, or must I hold on to the collateral as is? Good question. I do not know. I don't think he would be allowed to sell the collateral. It's not his to sell. It's his to hold. I don't think he should be allowed to sell it. What he actually does afterwards to damages, I don't know. We'll see. This is already a different sugya, but it's a good question. Okay, now, according to Rava learned it from the pasuk Ashur Chamot. So what does he do with the other pasuk of Mishpat Tzedek Yolinba? What does he do with that pasuk? The Ida Chai Milati Mishpat Mai Ovid. What does he do with it? Get the Rabbi Elazar, Amar Rabbi Yitzchak, Amar Rabbi Elazar, Amar Rabbi Yitzchak. You know what it means that the tzedek was left over? Tzedek is learned as tzedakah. Because what do we know? Called ta'anit. Shemeliin bo et tzedakah. Ki'ilu shofech damim. Shene'emar mila'ati mishpat tzedek. So what he's saying here is as follows. There's a Gemara that says that the main point of a fast day is to give tzedakah, right? Is to feel someone else's pain and help out the poor people who don't have food. And they used to give them food, and the aniyim would expect that food. They would expect it at that night of the after the fast is over. So if you didn't give the ani, if you didn't give the poor person his tzedakah, but rather you slept on it and gave it to him in the morning, then you're considered killers. So if you go back to the pasuk that said, Melati mishpat tzedek, read it tzedakah, tzedakah yolimba. If you left the tzedakah overnight, you're considered killers because the poor people were waiting on it and you didn't give it to them. Now the Gemara gives a little bit of a qualification on this. Qualification is this is if you're giving them, this is if the custom is to give them food to eat, ready-made food, right? For example, masbia, right? The masbia, the soup kitchen. So they're expecting to get food. If you're not, if the place is not to give them food, custom is not to give them food, rather to give them money or raw materials, then it's not considered evil and you're not considered killers, because even if you give them money or raw materials, they're not going to be able to eat that night. So therefore, you're not considered to be miratzechim, to be killers. Okay, so you have two different ways to learn it. How do you know you wait overnight? If you wait overnight and before you execute the person. Now, we learned in the Mishnah that we don't start a capital punishment case Erev Shabbat or Erev Yom Tov. What would be the reason? Or it said the Mishnah said the reason was because if I started an Erev Shabbat or I started an Erev Yom Tov, and if the guy is guilty and I have to kill him, when I have to do it on Shabbat or Yom Tov, and killing is a malacha, right? Something it's a malacha that you're not allowed to do on Shabbat. It's work you're not allowed to do on Shabbat, and therefore it's not Tochesh Shabbat. We're going to see that soon. It doesn't override Shabbat, and therefore you can't do it. And therefore, since you can't do it, you can't kill on Shabbos or Yom Tov. Therefore, you cannot try the case Erev Shabbat or Yom Tov. So let's take a look inside more. My Talmud, what's the reason you can't do the case? Can't run the case Erev Shabbat or Erev Yom Tov. Mishum Delay Avshar. That is not possible. What should he do? If you want him to try the case on Erev Shabbat on Friday, and to finish the verdict on Friday, that only works if you're trying to free him. If you're trying to make him guilty, if he's going to be found guilty, you can't do it. So therefore, since there's a possibility to be found guilty, you can't start the case. So they would have to wait overnight and wait till Shabbat, and you can't kill on Shabbat. Do you want him to start on Friday, the ligmer b'Shabbat, and render the verdict on Shabbat? Killing someone does not override Shabbat. Beit Din having to kill someone does not override Shabbat. So why don't you kill him Motzei Shabbat? So do the case on Friday. And like today, yesterday Shabbat came out very early, 5:15, whatever it is. By the time you come home from shul, okay, 5:30, 5:45, latest. Finish Abdullah at 6:15. You have plenty of time to kill someone, right? Plenty of time for Beit Din to kill someone. So why don't you do it Motzei Shabbat? Where it says Neged Hashem, Neged Shamash Be'inah. So last week we learned that it had to be done during the day. The execution has to be done during the day. So since Motzei Shabbat, it's already dark. You can't kill the guy. Gemara says maybe do the case on Friday and kill him on Sunday. You wait, so Shabbat you don't deal with it, and then you'll do it on Sunday. Gemara says he'll be found to have caused him agony in his judgment. You take a look at note 15. Once a person is convicted of a capital crime, his sentence must be carried out the very day, so as not to keep him waiting in agony for his punishment. Such delays include in the biblical prohibition against committing a perversion of justice. Also, others want to say, because we have the Torah a lot of times says, you have to get rid of the evil from your midst immediately. So if you know he's evil and you know he's Chayam Mitah, you're supposed to get rid of him immediately, not wait till Sunday. You can't do it on Shabbat. Therefore, don't ask him that he is, Chayav Mita until a point when you could actually do it. So don't start the case. Morris said, question?
Basically, we are taking mercy on the killer or whatever, right?
Yeah, we won't want him to sit in psychological agony for a whole day thinking, oh, tomorrow they're going to kill me. Right, and we don't want him to sit in that pain. We rather him find out he's Chayav Mitah and then kill him right away, so he doesn't have to have mental anguish for so long about his pending death.
But what happens regarding the appeals?
There's no appeal.
Because in our judicial system, let's say it takes decades sometimes to execute the person.
Yeah.
In American system, so that means they allowing the verdict to be appealed and all that, basically to go through all this possible scenarios. But in our system, there is no such check and balance.
So we did say that if there's proof that comes up before he's actually executing, we could reverse the situation. We learned that already. We choser l'schut.
But if you're killing him overnight,
right? So it's a very limited time. It's a very limited time that we can be choser. Once the verdict goes out and his killing, it's not instantaneously, but it's very, very, very soon after. So if in that period of time between the verdict and him taking out to the execution site, they were able to find the zechut to show that he's not Chayam Mitah, we could reverse it, but we don't wait long times to do that. Meaning that when the judgment is being done, that's why there's there's 23 judges. It's not stam, 1, 2 people sitting on a court case and killing the guy. It's 23 judges, and it's supposed to be very thorough. At that point, when they're judging the case, finally, it's supposed to be such a case that there's no reason to think that there's a mistake in the judge. That's how far it is. Okay, good. The Gemara now again explains why you can't do it on Friday, start the case, and kill the guy on Sunday. For another reason, minshut tamayu, because the judge might forget their argument. The whole day in between, the judges will now lose their train of thought. The marshal. Last year around this time, a little before this time, before this last year, I was at grand jury duty in Queens, on Queens Boulevard over there in Kew Garden Hills over there, and Kew Gardens, by the courthouses. So the grand jury duty is different than regular jury duty. You have cases that the cops bring, prosecutors bring, the ADAs bring, and you're supposed to say, should it go to court or not? That's basically what you decide. Anyway, so the prosecutors would come, the ADAs would come, and they would present the case, and then they would say, oh, well, I'm not finished presenting. I'm going to come back within the next 3 weeks. They had the whole month. From the first week to the end, we did it for a whole month. So, they came on the first week, and then they came back the final week to finish up their case. None of us really remember the case. We're all trying to remind ourselves what the case was. They gave us notebooks to take notes and stuff like that. But when the case was presented to us that day, and we were asked to vote on it on that day, it was a lot clearer in our head. You wait some time, it gets harder to remember. So that's what the Gemara says. Similarly, the Gemara says, if you're going to start the case on Friday, you can't do anything about it on Shabbat, and then you're going to judge it again on Sunday, you're going to forget. The Gemara says, even if you have the two scribes standing, and they write down the notes to everybody who said what and why they said what. So although the spoken words are recorded, leave the inche. But what the people were actually thinking when they said it, their feelings and their thoughts are forgotten. Therefore, it's not possible to try a case on Friday and conclude it on Sunday. It has to be done. Immediately. So therefore, since you can't do anything on Shabbat, you can't start it on Friday. All right. Now, Rabotai, we're coming to the next Gemara. This next Gemara requires two background ideas. So when I first was learning this Gemara to prepare for my Shabbat share, I'll be truthful. I'll tell you, I learned it. I think I had to restart the Gemara 10 times to understand where the Gemara was trying to go with this. But when I gave the share on Shabbat, it went very smooth. I think I had a good understanding of it. So hopefully today we'll be able to do the same thing. With this Hakdama, with this introduction, it should make things a little easier to understand. Okay, the first thing first, we have to know what a kal v'chomer is. So a kal v'chomer, simply put, if you have the article in front of you, if you go to the back, usually they have it in the glossary, the glossary here, kal v'chomer. So in the glossary in the back, I'm just going to read how the article understands kal v'chomer. Literally light and heavy, right? The word kal means light, chomer means heavy, or lenient and strictness, right? Being kal, being makel, or being machmer, kal v'chomer, right? And it's called a fortiori arguments. It's one of the Yud Gimel Midot of learning, and it involves the following reason. If a particular chumrah, particular strictness applies in a usually lenient case, then the chumrah has to be definitely apply in a serious case. And the article then says the converse of this argument is also a kal v'chomer, meaning if something light happens in a heavy case, then it'll definitely happen in a lenient case. So it goes both ways, right? If something strict happens in a lenient case, it definitely happens in a light case. And if something light happens in a strict case, then it'll happen in the lenient case as well. That's a kal v'chomer. So we're going to be dealing with different kal v'chomers now. The second idea is what's called doche. Something is doche, something else. What does this mean, doche? Doche means override. Simple understanding of overriding is the service in the mikdash, right? On Shabbat, you're not allowed to do melachot. That could include not bringing up korbanot. But there are certain korbanot, like the korban tamin and the korban of Shabbat, the olat tamid, the olat Shabbat, that has to be brought up on Shabbat. So in the mikdash, avoda, the service for Shabbat day, is dochet, overrides Shabbat. Okay, that's the two ideas. You keep this kal v'chomer and you keep this idea of dochet, the Gemara should make more sense. Okay, starting. Omer le Reish Lakish to Rabbi Yochanan. Reish Lakish said to Rabbi Yochanan, Utiek kiburat met mitzvah doche Shabbat mikal v'chomer. He says, someone finds a dead body on the street with no one to bury it. It's called a met mitzvah. Let's say you found it on Shabbat. Are you allowed to bury a met mitzvah on Shabbat? He says, I will find a way through a kal v'chomer to show that a met mitzvah, burying a met mitzvah, will override Shabbat. So he's going to show through a kal v'chomer that a met mitzvah, burying a dead body that's not attended to, is overriding Shabbat from a kal v'chomer. What's his kal v'chomer? He says as follows: Ma avoda. Avoda is doche Shabbat. You're allowed to do temple service that goes against the halachot of Shabbat, so it overrides Shabbat. So avoda is doche Shabbat, right? Tavuat meit mitzvah docha ota. A kvurat meit mitzvah is doche avoda. So what he's saying is follows. He's saying is this. It is a two-step process. He says, we know avoda is doche Shabbat. We know that the temple service overrides Shabbat. But we also know, and this is kal v'chomer, we also know that if you have a met mitzvah, and this is an example he's going to bring, if a kohen is on his way to do an avoda, he's on his way to make a korban, and he finds a met mitzvah, he finds a dead body that he has to bury. So the halacha is going to be, he's to take care of the dead body and not bring the korban. So a mitzvah, burying a dead body that's not attended to, is doche avodah. Now, if it's doche avodah, and avodah is doche Shabbat, then definitely a mitzvah should be doche Shabbat. That's his kal v'chomer. Should I say it again, or you have it?
A plus B equals B plus C and all that stuff.
Exactly. Yes. Yes. Since a mitzvah is doche avodah, we're going to see that. That's the next part of the morning. We're going to show where we see that a mitzvah is doche avodah. And avodah is doche Shabbat. So then a mitzvah is doche Shabbat. That's his kal v'chomer. Very good. A equals B, B equals Z. That's what he's saying. Okay. Now the Gemara has to show that a mitzvah is doche avodah. If you have a mitzvah, you have someone who's a dead body who's unattended, he has to be buried. That is doche the temple service. Keditanya, he brings the proof. They're talking about a nazir. A nazir, it says by nazir, he has to be kaddish, right? He's not to become tomei. Not for his mother, not for his father, not for his brother, not for his sister. And why do you have to tell me all this? What do you tell me the whole family? Stay for his family, you shouldn't be tameh. Or shouldn't be tameh for anybody. Why is he saying for each and every single individual? Gemara says, this is the case. Someone is going to shech his korban Pesach. Vilimol et beno. Or he's going to make a brit milah. It's the time to make a brit milah. The shema shemet lo met. And he hears that he has a family member that died. Yachol yitameh. He might think that he should make himself tameh. Amarta lo yitama. The pasuk says no, lo yitama. You don't become tamei for them. If you're a nazir, you don't become tamei for others. You go do what you mitzvah. Just as I don't become tamei for my sister, so too I should not become tamei for a mitzvah. Talmud Loimer, therefore the Torah says, for his sister, you're not metameh. But he is metameh limit mitzvah. So if a person who's supposed to go do the avoda, right? The carbon paste, it's an avoda on every single person. It's an avoda of the Beit HaMikdash, it's an avoda of the day. It's temple service, and he's supposed to go and do the carbon pesach, and he finds the mace mitzvah, and the halacha is he forgets about his carbon pesach. It gets overridden. You don't have to do that mitzvah now, and instead you do the mitzvah of a mace mitzvah. The Gemara ends off Shabbat. Now Shabbat we know is overridden because of avodah, because of service, temple service. Einodin. So shouldn't the kfurat mates of a mitzvah doche ota? So we have proof that a mate's mitzvah is doche avodah. Don't bring the carbon pesach, and we know that avodah is doche Shabbat. So then a mate mitzvah should be doche Shabbat. This is Rav Shlokish's argument to say that a mitzvah is doche Shabbat. Ephraim, you had a question?
Yes, hi. The idea of Kal Vachomer is only comparing two things. You cannot use the formula of A plus B. If A is bigger than B, then you know what I mean? Like,
why not?
Because the connection between mitzvah and Shabbat might not be the same relationship. So you cannot automatically.
You're saying what Rabbi Yochanan is about to answer him. So let's take a look. Very good. That's what Rabbi Yochanan is about to answer. Rabbi Yochanan is going to say it better. Let's take a look. He says as follows. Amar le. So Rabbi Yochanan says to Reish Lakish, you're trying to say that if it's doche one, so then the doche the other, right? If it overrides one, it overrides the other because this is stronger than that, so it overrides one, overrides the other. But it's not true. It's not true. He says as follows. I'm relating. Ritzicha tochiach. Ritzicha, Beit Din killing someone who's chayav mitah will prove otherwise. Why? Ritzicha shedocha et ha'avodah. Killing someone, Beit Din killing someone who's chayav mitah is doche avodah. It's doche someone who's about to go do the temple service. Imagine the kohen, it's chayav mitah, and says, no, forget it. I'm going to bring a carbon on the mizbeach. So we're going to see, we have a pasuk that says, when we pull him off the mizbeach, when we kill him, we say, no, you have to be killed. You can't go to, do temple service. So what do we see? That killing overrides temple service because here killing the guy, Beit Din killing someone, it overrides the kohen's obligation to be doing the temple service. But we also learned, Yochanan says, the Eina Doche Hashabbat. But we have an halacha that says that it's not Doche et Hashabbat. Ritzicha, like we learned in our Mishnah, right? So we don't do it on Shabbos and Yom Tov, because it does not Doche Shabbat. So you were trying to say, Sister Shagish, you're trying to say if something is Doche Avoda, then it's Doche Shabbat. But it's not necessarily true, because Ritzicha is Doche Avoda. But we see Ritzicha is not killing someone, making kill someone is doche avodah, but we see it's not doche Shabbat. So you can't compare the two. Like Ephraim was saying, you can't say that it's doche here, it's doche there. It's different stuff going on. It's not the way the Kal Vachomer is. It's Ritzicha tochiach. Ritzicha will show that this Kal Vachomer doesn't add up. So now we have to work this all out, right? So Ritzicha gufa titche Shabbat mi Kal Vachomer. Ritzicha. So the Gemara asks as follows. The Gemara says, one second. Hold on. The Gemara is going to ask Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan, you just told me that Ritzicha is not doche Shabbat. right? You're trying to show there's a separation. But why not? Learn another Kal V'chomer. Learn Reish Lakish's Kal V'chomer for Ritzicha. Ma Avodah Sheduchet HaShabbat. Right? We know that Avodah, temple service, is Duchet Shabbat. And Ritzicha Docha Ota. And we know that Ritzicha is Doche, overrides temple service. Shene'emar, because it says, Me'im Mizvichi Tikachenu Lamut. From my altar, take him to kill him. Right? So if a kohen is going to do an avodah and he's chayav mitah, it says me'im mizbechi, from my mizbeach, tikachenu lamut, take him to kill him. So you have a pasuk that shows that killing someone who deserves to be killed overrides temple service. Now Shabbat shenitchet mipnei avodah, and Shabbat, which is overridden by temple service, enudin shetieh retzicha docha ota. So shouldn't you say Ritzicha is docha ota? So basically, this is what happens. Yochanan comes and says, no, Ritzicha is doche avoda, but not doche Shabbat. That's what he says. That's the answer to Reish Lakish. Don't compare the two. Gemara then comes and says, no, compare the two. And who tells you Ritzicha is not doche Shabbat? I know our Mishnah said that, but let's say our Mishnah didn't say it. Well, let's say it's wrong. Mishnah says for a different reason. Ritzicha is doche Shabbat, right? Because if something is doche avodah and avodah is doche Shabbat, then that something should be doche Shabbat. Do the same thing that he did by Meis Mitzvah, do it by Ritzicha, and therefore Ritzicha should be also doche Shabbat. So now we're looking for a source for Rabbi Yochanan's idea or Rabbi Yochanan's teaching that Ritzicha is not doche Shabbat. We don't have that source right now, because right now we would be thinking, like the Gemara, that Ritzicha should be compared to Avodah. Then Avodah is Doche Shabbat, and it should be Doche Shabbat as well. So we have to find the source to Rabbi Yochanan saying that killing execution for a Beit Din's execution is not Doche Shabbat. So now this is where the Gemara is holding. So Amar Rava says, Kvar Paska Tanda Rishmo. We have already a teaching from the Beis Medrash of Rabbi Yishmael. The Tana Devei Rabbi Yishmael, it was taught from the yeshiva Rabbi Yishmael, Lo Tuvaru Ish Mal Tamud Boma. The pasuk says, Lo Tuvaru Ish B'chol Moshe V'techem. What is it coming to teach us? Now, thinking from here, we're going to learn that you can't kill, Beit Din cannot kill someone on Shabbat. Gemara says, whoa. Lo Tuvaru Ish. You're going to teach me something from there? Mal Tamud Boma. That pasuk is already used. Ilar Yossi, the Lav Yitzah. Ilar Natan, the Chalek Yitzah. So we already have that the word Lo Tivaru Ish is teaching us different things. If according to Rabbi Yossi, it teaches us the Lav Yitzah. What does this mean? Usually, Shabbat Melachot, if a person does them, he's chayav, capital punishment, if he does it on purpose, right? And there's witnesses and everything else. Or if it was without witnesses, he gets karet. Or he has to bring if he does it b'shaygig, he has to bring a carbon, right? So when it says when the Torah takes out Eish and mentions Eish separately from the rest of the 39 melachot, according to Rabbi Yossi, it's doing this to tell us that Eish, fire, is not a capital punishment malacha. It's a malacha that's just a lav. It's just don't do it, and you don't get capital punishment for fire. That's what Rabbi Yossi wants to learn. That's why the Torah singles out fire. Rabbi Natan says no. You know why it's coming to why it's singling out Eish is l'chalek, which is to tell us that there's actually 39 melachot of Shabbat. Because otherwise, I would think it's just melachah Shabbos is one big thing, and you can do 20 different melachas, and you only be chayav once. But now that you're coming telling me there's Eish, I know, there's Eish, so there must be other categories of melachot Shabbat, and each one is his own. And if a person did more than one, he's chayav more than once for all the different melachot that he did. Right? That's where you have your avot melachot, your primary melachot, and the toldot, and the subcategories of it. That's where it comes from. This lo tavaru Eish. So don't try to teach me anything about not killing someone from Lo Tivaru Eish. Kidatanya, and we're in the art school on 35B2. Kidatanya, it was taught in the following writer, Avar Lalav Yatzat. Did Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Yossi says, it says, like Tivaru Eish, coming to Talmud is just a lav and not a capital punishment case. I mean, not the number of the Chalek Yatzat, that it came to show us that there are different categories of melacha. So we're back to square one. We do not have a source for Rabbi Yochanan telling us that Ritzicha is not Doche Shabbat. This is what we're looking for. Gemara is looking for, where do we have a source that Ritzicha is not Doche Shabbat? Ela Omer Rava. Rava says as follows. Tana Moshavot Kashat Le. The Tana had a problem with the end of that pasuk. It says, Lo Tivaru Eish Bechol Moshavotechem. Don't light a fire in all your dwellings. So simply, this means anywhere you live, whether you're in Yisrael, whether outside of Yisrael, whether you're on Mars, whether you're on a different planet, you cannot light a fire on Shabbat. Now the Gemara says, Moshavot Mat Tamud Lomar. Mikti, let's take a look. Shabbat Chovat HaGuf Hu. Chovat HaGuf Noheged Ben Ba'aretz Ben Mahus Haaretz. Moshavat Chatav Rachmana Lamali. Says, why is this say Moshavot? Anywhere you live, you can't light a fire. Why would I think you could? The mitzvah of Shabbat is not totally ba'aretz. It's not a land-bound mitzvah. It's not Shemitah. It's not Yovel. It's not what's it called? Masarot. It's not nothing to do with the land of Israel. It's a mitzvah that's totally on the guf. It's on the person wherever he is. It's on him to keep Shabbat. So why would I? If that's the mitzvah, that's the category of mitzvah. It's a mitzvah on the person's body to keep Shabbat. Then why is the pasuk to tell me everywhere that they live? I already know from the mitzvah's category that it's a mitzvah on the body and not on the land. That anywhere I am, I have to keep Shabbat. So this word Moshavotechem, what is it teaching? So now the Braita explains. One of the Talmidim said, because it says, we have a lot of confusion now. When it talks about killing someone, it says, and based on to kill someone, person has a mishpat mavet, a court case that they decide he has to be killed, he's put to death. From this pasuk, Shemeani Beibechol B'Shabbat. I would think it means either week and a weekday or on Shabbat. Whenever he has to be killed, you kill him. Doesn't make a difference which day. So what do I do with the pasuk that says you cannot be mechalel Shabbat? The person mechalel Shabbat mot yuma. How do I use that? And killing someone is mechalel Shabbat. So what does that mean? Don't be mechalel Shabbat. Doesn't mean b'shar melachot chutz mitad bedin. Doesn't mean don't be mechalel any other melacha, but misas beis din, killing from beis din is okay. Or does it mean even beis din killing someone is no good on Shabbat because it means mechalel? And what do I do when it says he's put to death? Does it mean only on weekdays he's put to death and not on Shabbat? Or does it mean that he actually is killed also on Shabbat? So basically, the student saying that these psukim about killing in Mechalel Shabbat is not clear what to do. Can you kill on Shabbat or not? You can learn it either way from those psukim. So then he says, Talmud Loimar, therefore the Torah teaches us, Lo tuvaru ish b'chol moshavotechem. B'chol moshavotechem. Any of your dwelling places. Ulaholam, hu aimer. And when it talks about judges, it says, V'hayu elo lachem l'chukat mishpat v'dorotechem b'chol moshavotechem. Judgment should be for your generations in all your dwelling places. Now it makes a gzera shava. Ma moshavat ha'amur lahalan bedin. In the pasuk about talking about Beit Din, it says moshavotechem, and it's talking about Beit Din. Af moshavot ha'amur kan bedin. So when it says you can't light a fire in all your dwelling places, the moshavotechem also means Beit Din. Amar Achmana lo tevaru esh b'chol moshavotechem. And it's telling us that on Shabbat, don't light a fire in the Beit Din. What's lighting a fire? In order to kill someone through streifa, you would have to light a fire and take lead and melt it down so you get molten lead. You give the person to drink it, right? So it says, don't light a fire on Shabbat in the Beit-Din to do the killing of Sreifa. And once you can't do the killing of Sreifa, from there you learn you can't do any of the other 3 killings, right? Total 4 different killings the Beit-Din uses. We can't do any of them. So here is Rabbi Yochanan's proof. Rabbi Yochanan's proof that Ritzicha is not Doche Shabbat, and it comes from Sugim. Now Yochanan says, so you see, you have a case where Ritzicha is Doche Avodah, right? Take the person from the Mizbeach and kill him. It's Doche Avodah, but it's not Doche Shabbat. And even though Avodah is Doche Shabbat, but you see, A plus B, A is B and B is C doesn't apply here because there's Sukkim that says otherwise. When it comes to Avodah, there's Sukkim that says Tikachel Lamut, take him out to kill him. Therefore, is Doche Avodah. And when it comes to Shabbat, it says B'chol Moshe v'techem lo tivaru eish, and that means you cannot kill him with strafe. You can't kill him with any killings, and therefore don't compare Avodah to Shabbat. The same would apply to Reish Lakish's question about a mate mitzvah. He wanted to say mate mitzvah is Doche Avodah, then it's definitely Doche Shabbat. We say not necessarily, because here we have a case that proves otherwise. And so it's not necessarily if one is Doche one, it's Doche the other. Okay? So far, so good? We're almost done with the Kavachom.
Yes.
Good. We're almost done with the Kavachom. Okay. So now, if it would just end here, very nice. But the Gemara wants to continue. Now, I believe Abaya wants to flip the whole thing around. So, Amar Abaya. Abaya said, okay. Abaya said, so what are you telling me now? Hashta de Amart. Ein Ritzicha Doches HaShabbat. Now that you're telling me killing someone, Beit-Din killing someone is not Doche Shabbat, right? You have Psukim. Chol Moshe v'Teichem, Chol Moshe v'Teichem. Okay. So, Ein Ritzicha Doches HaShabbat. This is what you're telling me now. So now, say the opposite. Ein Ritzicha Doche et ha'avodah. So now say that Ritzicha is not Doche Avodah, right? Shabbat, if it's not Doche Shabbat, then it shouldn't be Doche Avodah. Mikal v'chomer, from a kal v'chomer. Ma Shabbat, shenitchen ipnei Avodah. Shabbat, which is overridden by Avodah, ein Ritzicha Docha ota. And Ritzicha doesn't apply to Shabbat. Avodah shi doche et Shabbat, but Avodah, which is greater than Shabbat, it shouldn't be done either. So if you're saying you can't do it in a light case, right? You can't do Ritzicha in a light case, the case of Shabbat, which is lighter than Avodah, because Avodah is there for Shabbat. So if you can't do Ritzicha in a light case, you shouldn't do Ritzicha in the heavier case of Avodah, right? That's what Abaya wants to say. He wants to flip the script. So we were working the other way, and now he's coming the other way. So one second, you're going to tell me, but we have the pasuk. The pasuk said, so he says, when he says you can take him from the Mizbeach to kill him, right? And you would think that's the pasuk that shows that it is Doche Avodah. He says, nope. Why? What Avodah is that talking about? Ahu Kerban Yochid, the Loy Dochi Shabbat. Because you know what that Avodah is talking about? That's talking about someone's private carbon, and a private carbon is not Doche Shabbat. So when the pasuk said, you take the guy from doing the Avodah, it's not talking about the Avodah that you would be Doche Shabbat for. It's not the one that overrides Shabbat. It's a regular simple Avodah that's not Doche Shabbat. Therefore, my Kal V'chomer stands that you shouldn't be able to kill him while he's doing the Avodah, which would be an Avodah like Shabbat, Avodah that overrides Shabbat. So he basically flipped the whole script here. He kind of took the whole thing and went the other way with it. If you're saying that you can't do Ritzicha on Shabbat, which is a lighter than Avodah, then you shouldn't be doing it by Avodah. Now you told me there's a pasuk that says you could take the guy from the Avodah and kill him. That's not talking about a regular Avodah. That's talking about a Avodah of a Yachid, not an Avodah that would be Doche Shabbat. So therefore, we see that it's not Doche it's not doche avodah. If a Kohen does an avodah that would be doche Shabbat, we would not be able to take him and kill him. That's what Abai wants to say. Okay. So Omar Rava. The Rava now says, if this is so, he says, one second, you're telling me, Abaya, you're telling me that pasuk is talking about the carbon yachid. I'll show you through a kal v'chomer that even a carbon yachid, you shouldn't be able to take him and kill him. Abaya, you want to say the pasuk only talking about a carbon yachid? I'll prove in your kal v'chomer that even a carbon yachid, you should not take him and kill him. Why? My Yom Tov. Yom Tov, on Yom Tov, according to one opinion, in Gemara and Beah, shenitchet mipnei korban yachid, that you could bring a korban yachid on Yom Tov, according to one opinion. That's right. So, ein retzicha docha oto, and we know that retzicha is not doche Yom Tov. It's like Shabbat. You can't kill it. It's malacha. You can't kill him on Yom Tov. Carbon yachid shu doche Yom Tov, now a carbon yachid is doche Yom Tov. So if you're going to do your kal v'chomer and say you can't do ritzicha on Shabbat, you can't do ritzicha from an avoda because avoda is greater, and you're saying the only exception is a carbon yachid, but a carbon yachid is doche Yom Tov, and if you can't kill him on Yom Tov, then you shouldn't be killing him when he's doing even a carbon yachid. Ein adin shlo tieh ritzicha doche otav. So shouldn't ritzicha not be doche someone who is bringing a carbon yachid? Now he's going to explain everything I said. He's going to explain it again. He says, everything is okay according to Abaya, according to the opinion in the Gemara that says you're not allowed to bring a carbon yachid. Okay, so that's the case where Abaya says the pasuk is talking about. I want to say you're allowed to bring a personal, private carbon on Yom Tov. Then Ritzicha should not be doicha even that. So then what's the pasuk talking about? It goes without saying that according to one who holds that the battle of the native offerings are offered on Yom Tov. The halomit kayem me'imiz v'chi klal. So that pasuk me'imiz v'chi that says you can kill the guy who's doing avodah doesn't apply at all. So how do you use the pasuk then? So by your kal v'chomer cannot work out because through a kal v'chomer, I'll show you even a carbon yachid. Using your logic that you're saying that, and the exception is only carbon yachid, but I'll use your logic to show you even in the carbon yachid is included that it shouldn't be doche. Then what do you do with this pasuk? Ela, rather, feel my diamond darn advice ain't karim yom tov. It's talking about me'im mizbechi. Mizbechi hamyuchad li. Man inhu tamid. V'amar rachmanat me'im mizbechi hikahenu lamut. So he says that me'im mizbechi means my mizbeach. Mizbeach hamyuchad li. What is it? It's the tamid. The tamid that's brought every single day. That's what it's talking about. Teaches that that's what it's talking about. Since the verse can be expanded to teach execution to override sacrificial service of even communal offerings, right? It says you take the guy, you take him off to kill him, even if he's bringing a carbon tamid. So Abaya, you were trying to say, oh, if it's doche, if it's not doche Shabbat, it's not doche the avoda. That's not true. The pasuk says you take him off the mizbeach even when he's bringing a carbon tamid. So your kal v'chomer doesn't work. So the moral of the story is that when your kal v'chomer flies against a pasuk, your kal v'chomer doesn't work. Okay, so you have to know your psukim well and how to learn the psukim. And if the psukim go against your kal v'chomer, the kal v'chomer doesn't work. I also, for me, what I also take out, this is my own thought, is that if you work hard enough, you can make a kal v'chomer to anything. Okay, so meaning that that's not the way halacha works. I remember my Rosh Yeshiva Reisman was talking to him about halacha once, And he says, be very careful when you learn the halacha. He says, because some people think, oh, if the halacha is this in one case, then it makes sense to be the halacha somewhere else. And he said that's not necessarily true. You can't make your own kal v'chomers in halacha. You have to know what the halacha is and when certain principles and stuff can be applied. Person goes ahead and starts making up kal v'chomers, you could do, but you're not going to get to the right halacha in the end. I mean, that's the Musar Haskell from this Gemara. Let's just do one more piece, and we'll finish for today. The Mishnah said that when it comes to capital punishment, you start taking the votes and the opinions from the least prominent to the most prominent. When it comes to Tumah B'Tahara or Mammon or money, you can start with the most prominent. Rav said, I was once in Rabbi's court, Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, and instead of starting with him, who's the most prominent, they started with me, and I was one of the simple judges. The Gemara says, but how? When we learn the Mishnah, you have to start with the biggest when it comes to cases of Mammon. Amar Rava, the Rava, the Tereb Hill, the Balas. Rava, the son of Rava, said, some say it was Rav Hillel, the son of Rav Valis. Steinsaltz wants to say the Valis is a Greek name, which means strong and vigorous. Anyway, he says, what's the reason? Shani Minyan Devei Rebbe. Rebbe's court was different. Everyone started with all the cases always started from one of the side people. The way the Farshim explained this is that since Yehuda Nasi was the greatest of judges, no one would argue with him at all. Now, the same reason why capital punishment, you want to start with the side people and not with the main one, because you want people to give their own opinions, and if you started with the biggest, no one else would argue. When it comes to Mammon, when there's only 3 judges or something like that, even the biggest one, you wouldn't feel so bad to argue with him. It's just money, it's not capital. But with Rabbi Yehuda Nasi as the judge, then people would think twice before arguing. Therefore, he never started with himself, and he always gave one of the side people to give it. Amar Rabba Bered Rabba Beitem Rabbi Hillel Bered Rabba Balis. Bimot Moshe Adrabi Moshe Rabbeinu Tzir Rabbi Yehuda Nasi Lo Matzina Torah Ugdulav Makom Echad. We never found Torah authority and power authority, physical authority, in one place. So Moshe Rabbeinu had it, and Rabbi Yehuda Nasi had it, but no one in between. Gemara says, really, no one in between had Torah authority and political authority. Hava Yehoshua, but there was Yehoshua. Gemara says, yeah, there was Yehoshua, but at the same time, Hava Elazar. Elazar was around at the same time, so there was an equal to Yehoshua. In Moshe's time, in Rabbi Nasi's time, there was no equal to that. Gemara says, but 1 second. Hava Pinchas. There was a time when Pinchas was the leader, and he was the Torah leader and the political leader. Gemara says, yeah, but Hava Zakanim. There were certain Zakanim there. Otniel ben Kenaz, Boaz, right? No 15. Hava Shaul. But then there was Shaul HaMelech. The Gemara says Hava Shmuel. At the same time, there was Shmuel HaNavi. Shmuel HaNavi died, and then Shaul was left himself. Gemara says, yeah, we're not talking about Kul Shnei Karmi. We're talking about where the guy was the man in charge the entire time, not that he was in charge after someone died. David, there was David. David was a power authority, Torah and physical. Gemara says, yeah, but David had a teacher at the same time with him. Ira was Ira. Is actually a boy's name here. He's saying Ira. Ira was his teacher. But Ira then died, and David was left alone. No, we're not talking about such a case. We're talking about where they were alive. The whole time that they were alive, they were the one in charge. But there was Shlomo HaMelech. Gemara says, yeah, but Shimi ben Gera, who was Shlomo HaMelech's teacher as well as the head of Sanhedrin, he lived at the same time. Gemara says, V'hak Kotle, but Shlomo HaMelech got him executed. The whole story that Shimi ben Gera went against David, and then he left instructions to Shlomo had to get rid of him. We'll deal with that at a different time. Anyway, the guy says again, Kulish and Karmina. No, we're talking about cases where the person was in charge the entire time that he was alive and not after someone else died. But then there was Chizkiah Melch, huge king, huge Talmud Chacham. Gemara says true, but Hava Shevna. There was Shevna. Shevna was greater than Chizkiah. but they killed Shevna. He was a bad guy in the end. The Gemara says, yeah, again, but we're talking about a case where the whole time the guy wasn't in charge. Ezra. There was Ezra. Ezra was huge. It's true, there was Ezra. Nehemiah ben Chachalyav. Nehemiah also lived at that time, and they were working in tandem. So he wasn't alone. I also say, Yemot Rebbe Ad Rav Ashi. So from Yehuda Nasi until Rav Ashi was an Amora. We did not find Torah and Gedula in one place, in one person, except for Rebbe and then Rav Ashi. Versus Veloy. When and Rav Ashi, no one as great as him at this time. Huna bar Natan was around. He was also. When I said Huna bar Natan, make up Hakayif leather Rav Ashi. He considered himself below Rav Ashi. So Rav Ashi could have been said that he was unmatched in Torah and in government and power authority over the Jews. Okay, so that is the Gemara for today. Any questions at this point? Stop over here. Good.
Rabbi Akiva.
Obviously not. The Gemara didn't bring it down. Obviously not. All right, I'm gonna end the recording.